Welcome everyone. Thank you very much for coming to this Q&A for the Cultural Heritage Data School. My name is Erwin Huerta. I am convener of the Data Schools at Cambridge Digital Humanities. And well, today the idea is to have a Q&A session in which we're going to try and introduce a little bit about what we want to do in the Data Schools, explain also the content, and of course to respond a few questions from you guys who maybe are thinking about applying to the Data Schools. So here with me, I also have Dr. Anna Alexander, my colleague, who's there. Also, Heather Studdert is with me. She's helping us to set this up with communications, and well, just they are pillars of the project as well. And just a few things before I start with the introduction and the content of this iteration of the Data School. Just some housekeeping. So the session is going to run for about 45-50 minutes, depending on your questions, right? And we're also recording this session, but it's just the first 15 to 25 minutes, which is us talking. So it's going to be me and talking about the content of the Data Schools, of this in particular. And we're going to stop recording after we finish our participations. And then we receive questions, and the questions are not going to be recorded. So you can feel freer to ask, right? And to make any comments. So, well, welcome again to those who are just joining. I'm going to share my screen so that it's easier to convey the message for today. So as you know, here at Cambridge Digital Humanities, we run two types of data schools. One is a cultural heritage data school, and the other one is a social data school. This in particular, the one we are presenting today, the Q&A for today, is for the Cultural Heritage Data School, and it's our iteration for December this year, 2022, which is going to take place from the 12th to the 16th of December. As I said at the beginning, today I'm just going to give a short introduction of the Cultural Heritage Data School, a short presentation of the content. Then Anne is going to talk about her own module. If we have another teacher joining us, maybe another teacher would also give a few words about the module. And then Anne is going to talk also about a perfect application, or what we would consider like almost perfect application, right, briefly. And then we'll receive questions and answers, and then we'll just wrap it up. Okay. So just a little bit of context about what we're trying to do with the Data Schools. As I was saying, we at CDH organize two types of Data Schools. This one in particular has to do with the cultural heritage, people working in the sector, in the GLAM sector, galleries, libraries, archives, and museums. And what we would like to do with the Data Schools is to put research methods and tools in the hands of people who are working in this sector, right? So we would like to democratize these research methods and tools for digital data collection, for analysis and reporting, research, solving problems of their daily work. We would like to foster as well the development of ethical practices in digital research. I would say research, and also kind of display of collections and items. It is really a space for a dialogue between academia, civil society, in this case the industry, right? So we love these interactions. Maybe Anne is going to talk about this later, but we love applications from people working in any institution, right, that has to deal with some of these collections, or with archives, etc. So we do not kind of avoid or prevent people from the academia from applying. But I mean, we would like to kind of establish those connections there, right? And yeah, we'd like to have the provision of practical instruction and knowledge exchange across sectors, professions, and disciplines, right? So that's kind of the background of the data schools. In particular, as I was saying, this has to do with the GLAM sector, right? So anyone who's interested in galleries, libraries, archives, and museums is very welcome. Well, I mean, in the kind of broad scope of digital humanities is also very welcome to apply. And yeah, we would like to explore methods to create, visualize, and analyze digital archives and collections, right? Who is someone who should apply for the Cultural Heritage Data School? Well, professionals working in this sector and in the wider cultural heritage sector as well, digital humanities in general is also welcome. Volunteers involved in community projects related to cultural heritage we're very welcome to apply. Researchers in academic circles that have to do with this sector, with digital humanities too. As I was saying, students are welcome to apply, and we will check their applications, although we will prioritize people who are working already in the industry. That doesn't really mean that your application is not going to be received or is going to be discarded. We're just going to give that priority to people working in the industry already. Yeah, people already engaged with the sector, right? If you're an academic or a student, a researcher already engaged in the sector, it's also very likely that your application is going to be accepted. Or I mean, you have more possibilities, right, to get accepted. It's a competitive application, so if you have this contact with the industry, is kind of gives you more points, as it were, in the application. Now the commitment, I mean, we are committed to democratize access, and access not just for people who are working in industry, but also in other places in the world. So we are keen to see also applications from the global south, maybe from disadvantaged backgrounds, as long as you know, they can commit the time to be with us between 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. For 1 week. That doesn't really mean that the school is going to run 5 hours in a row. You're going to see the content in a minute, but at least that you can make it around those times, and you'll see that also, you know, the times, right, are kind of planned around kind of that kind of range. Also, because we would like to allow people, in many parts of the world to join, right? People from maybe Asia, people working in the Americas, they're very welcome to apply as well. What does it cost? It's also, all this information is on the website. The costs have remained the same for this iteration. The standard rate is 245. For students, the unemployed, community projects, and unfunded projects, there is a rate of 45, right? Yeah, concessionary rate is for students, unemployed, community projects, unfunded projects, and global south residents. Also, we have a number of bursaries available to those who can demonstrate financial need. And there is kind of a section in the form to do this. Who qualifies for a standard rate, or who's kind of considered a standard rate, is people who are part of an organization with paid staff, and even people who are working for these organizations. They can access a discount if, for example, your organization has a small number of staff, of paid staff or limited funding. Important dates then for the Cultural Heritage Data School. for application for the actual data school are the following. 13 November, right? It's 13 November. It's our closing date, 13 November of 2022. So it's in less than 2 weeks. It's our deadline for applications, 13 November, right, of 2022. And the data school is going to take place between the 12th and the 16th, as I said. Just an overview of the curriculum. I hope you can see on the screen some of the modules that we have there and the different sessions. We have sessions that have to do with research design. That's the first session with Anne, digital research design and the project life cycle. It's an hour session. Then we have another module, so workshop modules, which means that it's a hands-on module on network analysis with GAFI. And that's something that Hugo Leal is going to teach. This is 2 hours. We're going to see 2 sessions with Hugo. He, for instance, has worked with Darwin's correspondence and established some networks between the people that Darwin used to write to and who used to write to him. Right. We also have another session, another module on principles of GLAM imaging. That's by Imaging Pawlowski. So it has to do with digitization of material. The next session, the next module is digital text markup and TEI with Hugh Jones, right? I believe he's going to teach this in two sessions. I'm skipping some of the modules because some of them are discussion groups, right? Which I'm going to talk about that later. The following module is tools for incorporating and engaging with 3D content. And this is using 2 particular tools, Morphosource and Sketchfab. And Andy Corrigan is going to give this module for 2 hours. Then we also have another module, which is going to be more in the form of a lecture by Siddharth Soni on automating the archive from card catalogs to computer bots. And we hope that this session is going to kind of stir up the debate, a continuing debate, in fact, that we have about engaging with anti-colonial archives. And then, as you see, we have 4 discussion groups. We have social media as archives, machine learning for collections, which is to be confirmed, by the way, the politics of the automated archive and digital image curation. Those discussion groups are supposed to be horizontal spaces where people can talk about their own projects and even bring their own experience, because we recognize that you who are working in the industry or who are researching about collections and digital humanities, you also have a lot to share and to teach. So those spaces are there depending on your interests. And as you can see, it runs for one week. In the past, we run it for 2 weeks. Now it's compressed into 1 week, but the number of hours is similar, the number of teaching hours. And that leads me to the time commitment, right? It's 13 hours of live sessions spread over 1 week from 12th to the 16th of December. We have, if you want to join all 4 discussion groups, you're welcome to do it, but you can have 1 or 4 discussions. And also you can engage with the material that teachers are going to share. So we're going to have a virtual learning environment that you can explore, and you can study at your own pace as well. And the materials are going to remain there for a certain amount of time. I don't want to kind of commit to a certain amount of time because we are in the process of knowing for how long, but it's going to remain there for some time. In terms of technical requirements, participants do require a good internet connection for video calls. Everything is going to be online, as you know. A laptop or desktop on which you can install software, right? Some of the software that we're going to need, although this might change later on, probably is going to be adjusted by some of the teaching staff, but the basic things that you will need is Zoom, right? Which obviously you have right now. Oxygen XML, Gaphy, OpenRefine, and probably we're going to use some online resources, as we mentioned before, Morphosource and Sketchfab. This is not all of the teaching team, but it's part of the teaching team. I've mentioned Anne already, Dr. Anne already. Hugo is going to be also teaching in this data school. Hugh Jones, as I said, TEI. Maciek Pawilowski from the library, from Cambridge Library. He's been working on digitizing collections in Cambridge and in other cultural heritage institutions. He's going to talk to us about GLAM imaging. Andy Corrigan is going to be teaching Morphosource and Sketchfab. And Siddharth Soni, as I said, with these discussions about the automated archive and post-colonial archives, etc. And I think that's kind of the overview from me, right? And now I would like to ask Anne, sorry, just stop sharing it, if she can just give a short description of the modules that she's going to teach, and if there is another teacher, we'll do it. If not, we're just going to have Anne Alexander's a little bit of kind of an overview of her own module. And then later, if you don't mind, if we don't have any other teacher, a short description of the perfect application. Anne, is that all right?
Yes, I think Andy's actually on the call, by the way, Andy Corrigan.
Oh, great. Then
so he might want to say something briefly about his,
he wants, right?
His module.
Yeah.
So just bear with me. Okay, welcome everybody. And we're delighted that you're interested in applying for the Cultural Heritage Data School. I'm just going to give you a very brief overview of, in a sense, the rationale behind the part of the school that I'm teaching, which is kind of foundational for the content of the school, in that we start off with the module or the section that I teach around digital project design. I suppose this is one of the things that you may find is quite specific about the way we teach things on the Cultural Heritage Data School and throughout the data schools, which is that we try and knit the skills and the tools and the methods that we teach you into an approach to designing projects. So it's a kind of project-based, project lifecycle approach to working with these tools and methods. So this is quite important because although we will give you kind of hands-on experience in many of these tools, they're often at a fairly taster level. What you will be able to do with them, though, hopefully, is to get a sense of how they can fit into project design so that you can then go off yourself and build on that in order to help design and execute projects in either your own or in collaboration with other people. So, why is this important? Because when we're working with data, we actually have to think about in a kind of holistic way processes of collecting data, of transforming and wrangling data, of analysing it, of presenting it, of visualising it, and then thinking about its afterlife, thinking about how to sustain and keep it, and to potentially destroy the bits that we don't want to keep. One of the things that will be embedded into my module will be also considering some of the ethical implications of working with data, tailored towards some of the questions that you might feature in the cultural heritage sector. So that's really a kind of overview of the content of my module. I wanted to also just say something very briefly about what we feel is a good application for the data schools, and that is there are a number of criteria that we look at. As Irving was explaining, one of the things that we're very keen for the data schools to be is a space for networking and participation by people who are engaged in the cultural heritage sector. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be formally employed in the sector. It could mean that you are working in a voluntary capacity in the sector, you're working in a community project, but that there is an engagement with either institutions, galleries, libraries, archives and museums, or cultural heritage projects and practices more broadly defined. So that's one of the things that we look for in an application. Although some of the, for example, some of the skills and methods that we teach, say, for example, TEI for text markup, are also used in academic contexts. But we would be more likely to prioritize an application from somebody who wants to apply that in the context of working in or with cultural heritage institutions or in the sector than somebody who is thinking about it from a purely academic point of view, because we feel that there are other places where you can learn those skills perhaps more appropriately for those reasons. So be sure to explain to us your engagement and connections with the cultural heritage sector when you apply. Briefly, other things that we look at are, as this is a project which is about opening up access to these tools and methods, one of the things that we will prioritize is if you can show that, for example, by teaching you, it will have a kind of multiplier effect in some way, which could be by you pass on those skills to other colleagues. It could be that you're working in, or, or with an institution that will reach a wider community, particularly if, it's something that is addressing, kind of structural or historic issues of marginalization or power imbalance and so on. So for example, that there is some degree of outreach will happen as a result of the project that you're engaged with, or something like that. And finally, and this is also very important, that if you can tell us, you can make a good case as to the personal impact of participation that being part of the school will have for you, that there's a good fit between your goals that you want to achieve, what you want to do with your career, or where you want to kind of take your life and the learning that you want to do, and what is available, what we're trying to teach you, so that you have had a look at the tools, the methods, the content of the school, and you put a case as to why that will make a difference for you. And you don't have to. It's all very, there isn't necessarily a perfect overall application. People may have strengths in one of those areas rather than another. So we just encourage you to make us, as good and detailed a case as you can, because it really helps us to decide. And I suppose the only other thing to say that's slightly different from this year's data schools is that we're running more of them, which is good, because it means there are more opportunities and different ways to engage with the data schools. So we're running 2 online data schools, and there will also be in-person data schools later in the year. So I hope that covers everything, but please feel free to ask me questions, and I'll hand over to Andy if he's going to say something, hopefully.
Only if he wants to say something, right? Because I didn't really warn him in advance, but yeah, if he wants to, yeah, please go on, Andy.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I just came along to see who was taking interest, see what was going on. Yeah, the module I'm going to teach is hopefully, like Anne said, hoping to kind of give you a bit more confidence to explore some of the themes and tools that you might use. There's a lot of 3D imaging is becoming a lot more accessible to people, and it's a lot easier to use than it used to be. But it's still a minefield of options and technologies and platforms and software. So really, I'm hoping to give you a bit of confidence to navigate and to feel confident using and incorporating 3D imaging techniques into the 2D as well, because we're kind of fairly strong belief that it's digitization is more than just flat images of pages in books and some data. It's about experiencing the things and telling stories as well. So as well as looking at the 3D aspects, I'll also be looking at a tool called Exhibit, which is a great way of telling stories using GLAM content via AAAF. So that can use flat content as well as 3D content. So that's quite good for kind of engaging people with your work as well. That's probably probably about it. Hopefully that's interesting.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much, Andy. I think that really gives a lot of insights into what you're teaching. So thank you, Anne and Andy, for talking about the modules. Well, just before going on to the Q&A and receiving your questions and responding to them, specifically just to kind of remind important dates, right? The Cultural Heritage Data School is going to take place from the 12th to the 16th of December. Applications are going to be open up until the 13th of November 2022, and we'll welcome your applications, and we will be very looking forward to read them, and then hopefully to see you in the data schools. So I think that's it.